Bet on Bears fans, another edition of the Chicago Bears podcast coming your way. Pat the Designer back at it again. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love. The final injury report is out, and we got a banged up Bears team coming into this game versus the Vegas Raiders. We got to break down some of the guys that, kind of have to step up in a way, right? Like if you drafted them, we'll talk about that. And some players coming back up, possibly. We got questionable on some names that have been DNP and out for the last couple of weeks. We'll talk about all that and more on today's episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do. As always, today's episode is brought to you by the Advantage Dealer Group. Find your next Chevy, Toyota, or Acura and drive off in under 60 minutes, or they'll make your first car payment. Also brought to you by the Hard Rock Casino in Northern Indiana. Las Vegas style gaming, 30 minutes from Soldier Field, exit 6 I-80 94. That's right. If you're like me and you're not going to be in Vegas, you tap in over there at the Hard Rock Casino in Northern Indiana. They'll get you right. Listen, a lot of banged up guys still coming into this week. DNPs for Grady Jarrett, Darnell Wright, and TJ Edwards, and their designation as of right now is out for this game. The two big names that I think you have to really pay attention to in that, of course, is Grady Jarrett and Darnell Wright. TJ Edwards, you kind of expected. He's been week to week and was designated as that a couple of weeks ago by Ben Johnson. And so I don't know if there was a ton of expectation that TJ Edwards was going to be back right away. I kind of figured that post-bye week would be the time that we would see him. But Grady Jarrett and Darnell Wright, two names that are out now. We talked about this yesterday with Courtney Cronin. Is this the opportunity that you have to see your young players be able to step into now? You drafted two guys who play very similar positions, if not the exact same position, in Ozzy Trapilo and in Shermar Turner. Is this their opportunity to go out there and get on the field? Now, losing Grady Jarrett sucks, and we'll start on the defensive side of this. It sucks, right? But you do have a guy like Andrew Billings out there who we saw last season be really dominant in his pass rush win rate. The run blocking game kind of went the other direction, and that's not what we wanted to see there. But as far as the pass rush game, Andrew Billings was somebody who was constantly finding his way into the backfield and going up against this Raiders offensive line that's, you got a couple of names on there, but a lot of the names that you thought were going to make some pretty big impacts. A Jackson Powers Johnson, a guy that you brought in who I thought really had a high ceiling, right? You just haven't seen those guys really start to hit. I think the interior of that line is a part that you can really get after. And this should be a game where the Chicago Bears defensive line is actually able to go out there and still win. I understand Grady Jarrett not being out there, but I think this is a great game for Shermar Turner to be able to get some reps in. I think this is a great game to go out there and see what your defensive line can do versus an offensive line that you should be able to get to after they're coming off a game where they gave up 5 sacks for Geno Smith, who, yes, still had a solid game, but you were able to get the Geno a ton in that game early on in the game. And I think that's the reason why you saw them down so much so early. I think for me, this is one where, as far as the defensive line goes, I'm still expecting a ton. Montez Sweat, Dio Adangbo, this is your time to shine. Where you guys going to be at, right? I think the Bears right now have 6 sacks on the season. This is one where, to me, you got to start to move that needle a little bit more in the right direction. I think this is a game where you should be able to get after Geno Smith. And I want to see what Shermar Turner is, right? Like, he's a 2nd-round pick. This is not, I think we talk about these guys as like, oh, it's going to take time. You got to grow into this. You got to figure this out. Listen, there should be some natural talent, some natural ability that we start to see on display here pretty quick. Luther Burden, also a 2nd-round pick. Guess what? The second that he got on the field and got the football in his hands, I was like, this dude can go out there and play football and can be a game wrecker if he gets space. Guess what? Flea Flicker last week, we've seen him a couple of times in the return game where you go, I can see that the talent is there. And Luther Burden was somebody who, very similar to the other two, missed portions of camp, was banged up, missed a ton of time. When he came back, by the time we were at the end of camp, right, the Caleb Williams and the first team offense was still kind of directing him where to go. And we were last couple of days in camp, Luther Burden was getting cussed out by Ben Johnson for not being in the right spot. Or I think on that one, it was not getting his helmet in there or getting his body in there to make a block there. But how Ben Johnson said to get a hat in there. Right. But I think even on that, right, like Luther Burden, clearly, we're seeing the talent immediately from this young second-round pick. Shermar Turner, are we going to see that same effect? Is he going to get that opportunity? This is a week to me where I think you have to. And by the way, he is the last of the picks made in that second round. I think on the flip side of this entire thing, you got to talk about, how is Ozzy Trapilo not in this mix right now? Is he lacking something? Is there something he's missing? Is there something that you guys didn't evaluate the right way? Again, a second round pick. I understand it takes time for some of these guys, but Ozzy was there for most of camp and was getting in work on the left side. In the second half of camp, he was getting in work on the right side where he feels the most comfortable. And when talking to him, during camp, he talked about how on that right side, he can kind of hit that flow state where, he can be a little bit more aggressive and he understands the position really, really well. He wasn't even a healthy option. He wasn't an active option, I should say, in any of the first 3 games that you could have gone to and utilized here. Your second round picks haven't been on the field. To me, this is optimal time where even if Ozzy is maybe the backup, right? Because he's not the swing tackle. So I understand from that sense, you want to have your 2 starting tackles on the field. You want to have your swing tackle on the field and Theo Benedict, who you can kind of have that, be able to swap around there. But how is Ozzy Trapilo not the first name you're talking about as far as the starting right tackle going into this game? And reason being on that, yes, he's a pure right tackle, but you don't want to start your swing tackle. You want your swing tackle to still be your swing tackle. And I think that's what Theo Benedict has shown that he's been able to go out there and do. If I'm outside looking in, right, and I'm looking at another second round pick that can't be active in the first 3 games, and then you're going to tell me he's not good enough to get on the field when you need somebody to come in at the position that you drafted him for, I'm looking at you side-eye. I'm looking at you side-eye in that situation. I have continued to have massive questions on the draft selections of Ryan Poles. And Ozzy Trapilo is a guy that I do feel good about. He's a guy that I do feel like can go out there and make an impact in this game. And I think, I'll be honest with you, as we're heading into this bye week, this might be worst case scenario for Darnell Wright, because I think if somebody goes out there and shows, hey, in operation, I'm able to play on time, on task, and actually able to go out there and consistently make my blocks, could we see a change possibly coming at that right tackle spot? Ben Johnson hasn't shown kind of a hesitancy to put the pressure on guys in the slightest. And I think if Ozzy comes out and he actually shows some very good competition against an offense or a defensive line that, listen, Max Crosby is going to be a problem. He's probably going to be moving on that line, right? But my guess is that the focus for Max is going to be, let me go up against Braxton Jones, because he's won that matchup a ton versus Braxton Jones already, right? He understands the weaknesses of Braxton Jones already versus a guy like Ozzy who, may kind of get the benefit of the doubt here, where I already know where I can get to the quarterback. I'm going to attack that side. I think if you can't get Ozzy on the field in this week, looking at the schedule, what's the week you plan on putting him on the field? What's the week that you plan on playing your second round pick, or is the hope here that which would be, again, confusion from the front office, is the hope here that we're going to shelf a second round pick for the entire season and let them develop? Because this is not a Karan Amagaji situation. This is not Karan missed the entire camp, and so we're scared to put him out there. We don't want to. No, this is, hey, Ozzy, you were drafted. You were at camp. You know the plays. You should understand the playbook. You were a part of an offense that was running this playbook with the second team unit and at times with the first team unit. You can't get out there? So we'll see what ends up happening there. I would say keep a massive eye on that.
I love that my husband's so handy. He leaves more money for the important stuff. Gosh darn it, Steve.
Oh, don't be like Steve. Call Avondale Roofing. DIY is for Pinterest, not your roof.
Some of the guys that are questionable right now that you kind of got, some concerns. I would say starting off with Colston Loveland. He's been DNP pretty much this entire week. He was limited today. Remember, Friday is kind of like you are still practicing, but I believe today they were in shells. It's more of a walkthrough day. It's more of a, okay, this is kind of what our plan is and how we want to attack this. So seeing Colston be out there, hopefully the rest on the hip is going to allow him to be able to get back on the field. Yet again, another draft pick that you just haven't seen that big impact from as of yet. I do think, though, when you saw that play, when you saw early on in the game, right, that big catch that Colston had, and how Caleb Williams was able to find him in space, you can tell that the uptick in that tight end room is coming. And I think it's great that you got Cole Kmet as a full go and somebody that Caleb Williams can rely on, who was limited early in the week with a groin issue. He was a full go the last couple of days. Another name, again, that you got to keep an eye on here, DeAndre Swift. We just haven't seen, yet again, limited. He's questionable for the game. I wonder, again, is this kind of we're looking for our draft picks to show us something here in this game, right? Is this a game where we see Kyle Monangai get more carries? We've seen that uptick in Kyle Monangai's game week after week after week. There's been more carries, more plays called for him, more times his number has been called on, and you're starting to see him do something with it. Now, can you go out there and put a stamp on the position and say, hey, I understand that we haven't done enough from this running back position while the offensive line is blocked really well for us? Let me show you what I can do. Let me show you how I can go out here and I can make these plays. Let me show you the ability that I have as a downhill runner. And even talking with Ben Johnson today, he was talking about the big question on Monangai was when he ended up taking that 8-yard loss, I think it was, down in the red zone. And, I asked him, what's the teaching point there? And he said, listen, you don't want to coach playmaking out of your players. You want them to be able to go out there. You want them to always have that playmaking mentality, especially at the running back position. But you do have to know and be aware of the situation that you're in. You can't take an 8-yard loss in that spot there, especially when we're in the red zone and we're in prime opportunity to go down there and score. So I think with that, you're starting to see some of those teaching points. Let's see if that plays out here. This is a defense that will allow you to run the football against them. And I think, to me, this is a defense that, if you're going to have success against Max Crosby, if you're going to have success against one of the best pass rushers in football, you're going to have to be able to run the ball. You don't want to sit there and have Caleb dropping back 30 times, because that's going to create the opportunity for you to set Caleb up for more hits. If you can find a way to get this running game going, I think it puts him in play action. It puts those play action opportunities in such a better position. And now all of a sudden you got Max Crosby thinking, okay, this may be play action. This may be a run play. I got to play a little bit on my back foot. And that second of hesitation is the difference in him getting to Caleb Williams, or Caleb being able to make something happen with his feet, or being able to make a pass happen. I think there's a ton of options for you there. And so, without DeAndre Swift out there, with him being limited and questionable for the game, even if he is ready to go, has he shown you that he's 100% your number one running back? I don't think he has as of yet. And so I think that competition is completely wide open. I could see this as a game where you get some big Kyle Monangai minutes. Let me know how you guys feel down in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you as well. I think this is the final big thing from the injury report today as we're heading into this game. Questionable for the first time in a while here for Kyler Gordon. Saw him in the locker room yesterday. I know he was DNP, but you saw him in the locker room yesterday. He looked like he was moving around okay. Of course, that's not the same as moving around okay on the football field, but right now limited for Kyler Gordon today, which means that he's starting to move in the right direction. You're not seeing DNP, and there's no chance that he's going to play in the game like we're seeing here with TJ Edwards and his hamstring. The Kyler Gordon situation, I think adding him back into this mix would be massive for that DB unit. I think it would be massive for how Dennis Allen can call this defense. We saw him call a defense last week that I thought was incredibly competitive, that I thought, even though the pass rush wasn't at all times getting home, I thought you called a defense that was able to go out there and make a lot of plays. And there was some of the confusion that you had when you started running, you're close to the line, you start running some of that 4-out stuff, and you're getting pressure on the quarterback, because now they can pin their ears back and you get them into these third down situations. And now you're talking about a DB unit that's able to hold their own. You've seen a little bit more of an emergence of Deshaun Wright. You've seen Tyreek Stevenson kind of get into a lockdown situation. As much as people want to go, well, it wasn't CeeDee Lamb out there. George Pickens ain't nobody to just roll over and laugh at. George Pickens is a player. He's a dog out there. And so I think, to me, like you saw improvement in Tyreek, adding Kyler back into that unit I think it only enhances the kind of aggressive play that this Bears defensive unit showed in the second half of that game. And we know what Kyler wants to do. We know how he wants to attack. He wants to be utilized in that blitz. And I guarantee you he would love a shot to get to Geno Smith. And remember, this is Geno Smith, who last year, with a very different team, right? And maybe better, maybe worse. I don't know where you lie on that with Seattle after the game that we just saw last night. Maybe kind of the same in a sense, and maybe the coaching is a little bit different. But this is a Geno Smith who last season went out there and beat you, but he didn't have a dominant day. He didn't have this phenomenal day. It wasn't like he was under duress all day, even though I believe that is the last sack that Montez Sweat had. So maybe racking up another one here. It was a defense that confused Geno, and he wasn't able. I think they won 6-3, if I'm not mistaken. So this is that same Geno Smith with a different team. Yes, different run game, different offense. I would say offense kind of similar, but different offensive unit out there. Yeah, and I would say a worse offensive line standing in front of them. This should be advantage Bears, and I think in that situation, adding a guy back in like Kyler Gordon is going to be massive for the team. Couple of guys to finish out the injury report, Jalen Jones and DeMarco Jackson. Both were full goes, and so they are all good to go for the game. And Cole Kmet, like I said earlier, a full go the last couple of days with that groin injury. So seems like while the Bears are banged up, is this not what you went out and drafted these players for? Is this not why you went out and got a Shermar Turner? Is this not why you went out and you got an Ozzy Trapilo to make those positions? And it may be Ozzy, we all thought was for the left side. We thought he was going to be in that Braxton Jones spot. He was in that mix early on, but he's a right tackle. This is the position you played. Do you understand the lingo? Are you ready to go? Is this a game where you're showing us the talent and why you were drafted so high? Because I don't think that we can say that about a good chunk of the picks right now that have been made here by Ryan Poles outside of Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze. I think there's question marks littered up and down Ryan Poles' draft board right now. And it would be good to see, I think, just for the confidence of the team and for the confidence of the young men that were selected there, be good to see them be able to come out versus this Vegas team and at least start to understand and start to have those real football situation growing pains. You can't learn football without playing football. And I love the fact that we had that aggressive practice where you saw Ozzy, you saw Theo Benedette, you saw like all of these players really grow from that. Let's see that in a real football game now. And that's really what I'm going to be looking for from this game. As I predicted yesterday, I do have the Chicago Bears winning this game. I think I said 28-21. Or 27-21, somewhere in there, for a Bears victory. I think that this is going to be one where you're going to have to put a couple of those long drives together. Now, a 19-play drive is insane, but I think that just with how this defense kind of has been, I think that you could break them pretty early here if you put a couple of those long drives together that end up finishing with 6, and of course the field goal making it 7. Like, that's what I really want to see from this Bears team. Continue the growth that we're seeing from the offense, continue the comfort. Caleb Williams is probably going to be under a little bit of duress this week, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how Ben Johnson schemes this thing up and how he schemes up for Max Crosby. You know, that's somebody who I asked him today, I know you got to focus on him, but how do you balance committing to him and not, losing playmakers in other areas if you got the tight end out there to chip or something like that? He talked about how, you got to focus on Max, but you can't forget about the rest of the defense. So an understanding of kind of, that there's playmakers all over this thing. These guys are all in the NFL, and the hope is that, the Bears can go out there and have the stronger unit in the trenches, very similar to what it looked like we had versus the Dallas Cowboys. And I think going into this bye week 2-2 puts you in a great position as you head into this Washington Commanders game. A Washington Commanders team that's pretty banged up as of right now as well. So let us know how you guys feel in the comments below. I'll be down there talking with you guys. As always, hit that like button, subscribe to the page. Let me know your prediction. Do you have a Bears dub, or do you feel like the Bears go in 1-3 to the bye? As always, man, it's your boy Pat the Designer. Back at it again. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down. One love. Peace.